ask everybody for one quick second, if you could hold up your book. I just want to take a picture with everybody with their book.
Where's your book?
Oh, it's awesome.
Where is it?
Thank you, thank you. Okay, the reason we are all here.
One more time.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do it a little bit. Okay. Okay, Deepak Chopra, as we all know, is a world-renowned pioneer in integrative medicine and personal transformation. Dr. Chopra is the founder of the Chopra Foundation and co-founder of the Jio.com and Chopra Global, a modern healthcare company positioned at the intersection of science, spirituality, and transformation. Time magazine has described Dr. Chopra as one of the top 100 heroes and icons of the century. I think we would all agree with that. He is the best-selling author with over 86 books, including 26 New York Times bestsellers in both fiction and nonfiction categories. We are here today to celebrate Deepak Chopra's latest book, METAHUMAN, which was released on October 1st. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Deepak Chopra.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Pages. And thanks for coming here. I'm very honored and privileged to be speaking to you. We have approximately less than an hour to solve the mystery of our existence. So let me go right for it, okay? So if you read deep history, if you're a student of deep history, then you will find something very interesting. And that is, up until 40,000 years ago, there were 8 different species of humans. We are part of the human family. Just like lions and tigers and panthers and cheetahs, and your house cat is one family, but different species. A species mates only with its own kind, even though it comes from a bigger family. So we are called Homo sapiens. It's a name we gave to ourselves. It means the wise ones. So we were extremely humble giving us this name. But we gave names to other species too, other human species. Homo erectus, Homo habilis, Neanderthals, Floroensis, Denisovians, on and on. And they all look like us, like we did. And they all had a rudimentary language, which most animals do. They communicate with each other within the species. And the language is just about survival, which means sex, food, and danger, period. That's how species survive. And that's how humans survive too, as before the hunter-gatherer, even prior to the agricultural age and so on. So then something very interesting happened. One species, us, we created a language for telling stories. In all my research, I couldn't find any other species that does this. We are the only storytellers on our planet. And the first stories were gossip, which is still the most popular story, right? Any newspaper, any social media, it's all about gossip. Fake news, real news, doesn't matter, it's all gossip. But then other stories started to emerge from Homo sapiens. Stories like race, religion, mythology, cultural mythology, which is religion, all in the Bronze Age, and then philosophy, which literally means the love of life, then theology, which is the study of religious doctrine and experience, and then about 400 years ago, science. So the most important thing to know is that science is also a story, and it's told by human beings, and it's probably the most adventurous story that Homo sapiens has ever embarked on. Because of science, I'm here, I took a jet plane, I'm using a microphone, we all use social media, and we take it all for granted. It's only 400 years old, and actually the information age is only since the 1990s. There was no internet before that. And so all this has happened very recently. And of course, we think science is the most reliable story. So I hope to give you the scientific story, but also I hope to convince you that it's not true. So let's go there. According to current science, your present existence in this form that you are there began at the moment of your conception. So at the moment of conception, one starts out with a single cell, one cell, a fertilized egg, and that cell divides 50 times, approximately, ends up as the 100 trillion cells that make a human baby. One becomes two, becomes four. This process is called morphogenesis and differentiation, how the one becomes the many. Morpho means form, morphogenesis to give rise to form. So that one cell, call it a stem cell, a pluripotential cell, it becomes everything that you are right now. Fingernails, hair follicles, genitalia, brain, heart, eyes, etc. It's an extremely fascinating process because during that 9 months of embryogenesis, the human baby, in its development in the womb, replicates all of biological evolution. And at the moment of conception, you acquire 25,000 genes. A gene is a stretch of DNA that codes for a protein. So DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and there are 4 chemicals that make up the entire alphabet of life. And they're usually abbreviated as 4 letters of the alphabet, A, T, C, G. So right now I'm speaking to you in English, which uses 26 letters. Most languages use over 20 letters. But life uses only 4 letters. Doesn't matter if it's the life of a bacterium, a microbe, a plant, an animal, a lizard, you, me. So those 4 letters make words, and the words, metaphorically speaking, are called genes. Gene is like the word which becomes this flesh, literally, or metaphorically. Everything is a metaphor. And people ask, where did the atoms come from that make up the alphabet? You know, A, T, C, and G are made of atoms. And 4 atoms dominate your biology. 96% of the atoms in your body are just 4: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. The remaining 4% are other elements from the periodic table. Iron in your hemoglobin, and calcium in your bones, and all of that. So where did the atoms come from? And our current science says that the atoms were manufactured in the crucible of burning stars, like they're called supernova. So when a giant star exhausts its thermonuclear energy and burns itself up into the heat death of absolute zero, what we call a singularity, a black hole, in that process, hydrogen and helium fuse to make the elements in your body. And today we are told that 50% of the atoms in your body don't even come from the Milky Way galaxy. They come from other galaxies through a process called galactic wind, which means gravitational forces suck out matter from other galaxies into the Milky Way galaxy. According to current science, there are 2 trillion galaxies. And by the way, you don't have to believe anything I say. You can Google this information. Everything is easily available now. 2 trillion galaxies. 700 sextillion stars. I don't even know how to write that, except it's 700 followed by so many zeros that if you actually had to write it, it would take you a lifetime or more. 700 sextillion stars and uncountable trillions of planets. In fact, today cosmologists believe that there could be 60 billion habitable planets in our own Milky Way galaxy. And how do they even come with this conclusion? They have satellites and telescopes in space, like the Hubble telescope, the James Watson telescope, and lots more. And they look for what is called a biosphere. A biosphere means an atmosphere that's conducive to life. So a planet has to be within a certain range of its sun in order to harbor life. If it's too close, too hot, too far, too cold, this zone is called the Goldilocks zone. Planet Earth happens to be in the Goldilocks zone. But if you look at all this current cosmology, then our planet is not even a speck of dust. Not even a speck of cosmic dust. And now, of course, it's in the junkyard of infinity because we've even polluted space. If you count all the number of grains of sand on planet Earth, it comes to about 400 billion multiplied by some huge number. So our planet would be one of those 400 billion grains of sand in a universe with 2 trillion galaxies and 700 sextillion stars, and a species called Homo sapiens, which is trying to figure out what happened. Nobody knows any cause for the Big Bang. No cause can be ascribed for the Big Bang. There are no laws of nature in the 10 to the power of 43 minus 10 to the power of minus 43 seconds after the Big Bang, which is called the Planck epoch. And then cosmologists also claim that there was a short period called cosmic inflation, 10 to the power of minus 33 to 10 to the power of minus 32, post-singularity, where the universe, which began as a little dot, smaller than a period at the end of a sentence, during this period, which is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a nanosecond, it tripled every trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a second, from a dot to the size of a grapefruit, and now it stretches 47 billion light years away from where you and I are sitting. Let's talk about mythology. This is the best mythology. It's more crazy than any other mythology that comes from the past. Because none of this, by the way, is provable. The Big Bang no cause can be ascribed to it. No one knows what happened at the Planck epoch because there were no laws of nature. Why would the universe triple in size every trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a second and then slow down? So it's now where it is. But this is our scientific framework, and science works, as you know. So what's going on? And what I would like to share with you is that we need a radically different approach to understanding our existence and the existence of the universe. Because at this moment, our scientific adventure, even though it's great, has caused climate change, has caused extinction of species, has caused risking our own extinction at the moment, social, economic injustice, poison in our food chain, biological warfare, mechanisms of death that could cause the earth to, all life to go away 20 times over, not even 1 time over. and we're living as if life is normal. So the book is an attempt at waking up to reality. What is reality? Beyond the conditioned mind. Because everything that you perceive, including your own body, including this room, including when you go outside and look at the stars, everything that you perceive as stars, including your own body, is a projection of your mind, of your conditioned mind, and of your provisional identity. This is our provisional identity, and it's given a name. This identity is given the name Deepak Chopra. I had nothing to do with it. Okay? So as soon as a child is born, you're already programmed into a provisional identity and a provisional interpretation of the world. And that has been going on for thousands of years. So it started with mythology and religion and theology, philosophy, science, and culture, basically. Different cultures and language ultimately resulted in our experience of what we call the everyday world. The book is called METAHUMAN. The word meta means beyond. And human, in this case, means the human mind. Because what you experience is a projection of the human mind. There are other living species that also have some kind of awareness and also have some kind of perceptual experience. And I had a lot of fun when I was writing the book and looking at these other species. For example, the butterfly, the common butterfly, which is called the painted lady. If you look at the anatomy of this butterfly, she smells the world through her antenna. She hears the world through her wings. She tastes the world through her legs. She has 30,000 lenses in her eyes that move like a kaleidoscope, giving it presumably a changing experience of shimmering colors, forms, and shapes. That's the perceptual activity of a butterfly. A snake experiences the world through infrared. What is that experience? A bat experiences the world through the echo of ultrasound. What is that experience like? A chameleon's eyeballs swivel on two different axes. You can't even remotely imagine what this room or what you would look like to a chameleon. So what's the real picture of the world? What's it really like? Is the world what we are seeing right now? Or is this just your projection and our projection? What's behind the projection? And this idea goes back all the way to Plato. Plato's cave, if you've taken classes in philosophy, the shadow world that we live in. Or, of course, the great Sufi poet Rumi, when he says, this is not the real reality reality is behind the curtain. In truth, we are not here, this is our shadow. So, what we are experiencing right this moment is an interpretation of human perceptual activity. Because right now you're seeing me. And so that perceptual activity is called seeing. But according to current science now, what's really happening is photons are coming from me to you. This light is bouncing off me, coming to your eyes. And when it enters your retina, there's a chemical reaction. And then that sends an electrical current to your brain, and that's called an action potential. And in the brain, there's neurochemistry. And suddenly you say, oh, that's Deepak on the stage. How do invisible photons that create an electrical current that result in biochemistry in the brain create the experience of you seeing me on the stage, seeing everything else, and seeing your own body. How does that happen? Okay, because there's no light in the brain, there's no color in the brain, there's no form in the brain, only chemistry, electrochemistry. And this is true of all our senses. So right now as I speak to you, your eardrums are vibrating. There are certain little hair follicles in the ears that send an electrical current to the brain, and suddenly you hear this guy with an Indian accent speaking in English. How does that happen? The same is true of any experience you have, whether you're tasting a mango or a strawberry. All that's going to your brain is an electrical current, period. All that's happening in your brain is electrochemistry, period. But you are seeing this body, your own body, you're thinking thoughts, you have images, you have feelings, and if you're a little self-reflective, then you might access intuition and insight and creativity and vision and even a longing to make things different, including your own body, experience of your body, or the experience of the world. Because before you can name an object, whether it's a microphone or this table or this hand, before you can name it, it's an experience. And it's a perceptual experience, it's a perceptual activity. Seeing is a perceptual activity. And that perceptual activity occurs in your consciousness, in your awareness, and all you see, if you were a baby right now, all you would see is colors, shapes, and forms. You wouldn't know that this color is a waistcoat, and this color is something on a table, and this is a table. All you'd see is colors, shapes, and forms. All you would hear is noise. All you would taste is a plethora of different tastes, sensations, and you wouldn't know this is a strawberry or a mango. Those words were invented by human beings for modes of knowing and perception in human consciousness. And so once again, go do a search on the internet and type out the following phrase. What are the 125 questions that science has no answer to? What are the 125 questions that science has no answer to? I'm only going to talk to you about two of them. The first open question in science is, what is the universe made of? So you would say, why is that such a difficult question? I just told you there are 2 trillion galaxies and 700 sextillion stars and uncountable trillions of planets. So the universe is made of atoms, molecules, as is your body. But it turns out that's actually not true. 70% of the universe is a mysterious entity called dark energy. It was something that Einstein called the cosmological constant. Then he said, oh, it's the biggest blunder of my life. And then it turned out he was right, because the universe is expanding right now. It began as that dot, according to science. And it's expanding right now, where it is 47 billion light years away from where you're sitting. And it's expanding because of this mysterious entity called dark energy. No one knows what it is. It's a mathematical construct based on an observation that the space between galaxies is expanding faster than the speed of light. The space between galaxies is being ripped apart faster than the speed of light because of this mysterious entity. That leaves 30% of the universe remaining, of which 26% is another mysterious entity called dark matter. And dark matter is invisible. And the reason it's invisible is it's not atomic. It's not made of atoms. You and I are made of atoms. Everything that you can see is made of atoms. Atoms reflect light, absorb light, emit light, refract light. But if something is not made of atoms, it's unknowable. You cannot know it, because you can only know things that are made of atoms, like you are. 26% is invisible matter. So why do we call it matter? Because usually we refer to matter as solid things, you can touch them, and they have a shape, they have size, and they're hard or soft, but they're out there. Dark matter is invisible. Why call it matter? Well, because it bends space-time in the same way as regular matter, and is the scaffolding of a galaxy. It holds a galaxy together. So if dark matter disappeared, then every planet would spiral off and get lost in intergalactic space, and we wouldn't exist. Even if you don't believe in God, you can pay homage to dark matter, because without it, you wouldn't exist. Okay, now we're left with 4% of the universe, which is atomic, which is visible, the visible universe. Well, it's not. 99.99% of the atomic universe is invisible interstellar dust, which is also invisible. So the visible universe, 2 trillion galaxies, etc., is 0.01%. 0.01% on this, according to scientists who are not even the equivalent of a virus on a speck of dust in an infinite void. The visible universe is 0.01%, atomic universe. Now, the mystery doesn't end here. Atoms are made of particles, and particles are made of smaller particles, and when you're not looking at particles, or when they're not interacting with other particles, they disappear. So particles have units of mass and energy, but they disappear into waves that have no location in space-time and have no energy at all. They have no energy at all. You ask the best scientists, what are the particles made of that make up the entire universe? The best scientists. Where do those particles exist before you see them? Before they are measured? Where do they exist? And they'll give you an answer. They exist in Hilbert space. So you say, what is Hilbert space? It turns out it's a mathematical space that has infinite dimensions, or 0 dimensions. Both mean the same thing. 0 or infinite mean the same thing in this case. You say, where is Hilbert space? It turns out Hilbert is the name of a German mathematician, and Hilbert space is a mathematical construct. So you say, where is it? What does it house? They say it houses infinite possibilities. But then you say, where is it? And they'll say, shut up and calculate. And otherwise you lose your job. Okay, so what is the universe made of? One sentence, one phrase, one word summarizes the whole thing. It's made of nothing. The universe is made of nothing. So then why does it look like this? Why does it look like you, me, and this microphone? Because we're all part of the universe, okay? That leads to the second open question in science. The first was, what's the universe made of? The second open question in science is, what's the biological basis of consciousness? How do those electrical currents going to your brain produce experience? This experience, sound. There's no sound in the brain right now. If I went inside your brain, looked for sound, there's none. There's no color, shape, as I said. There's nothing that we call reality in the brain. So the whole idea that the world is real is under attack. And not just through philosophers, through scientists and philosophers of science, because we can't ask the most basic, we cannot answer the most basic questions of existence. What is existence? This, what you're experiencing. This is existence, right? It exists. This exists. You exist. And how do we know that we exist? Because if you didn't have consciousness, then for all practical purposes, there's no existence. So the first question, what is existence? Don't know. It's made of nothing. And second, what is consciousness and where does it come from? Don't know, because it's also made of nothing. Consciousness doesn't have a form. You can't look at consciousness and say, oh, it's of red color, or it has this shape or this sound. Consciousness has no form, and yet we know we exist. You know you exist. Now, spiritual traditions, usually, religious traditions, have said when they speak of fundamental consciousness, they call it the soul. I use those words, but sometimes I don't. When I'm in a scientific conference, I stay away from words like God and soul, because they roll their eyes up and say, there he goes again. All of that. So, let's not use the word soul, although it is fundamental. Your fundamental existence is you're a conscious being. And because you're a conscious being, you have experience. And you have human experience. You don't have a crocodile experience, a snake experience, a butterfly experience. You have a human experience. And that human experience is a very narrow band of perceptual activity in a band of activity that's infinite, literally infinite. Nobody will argue about that. We know that other species have completely different experiences by looking at their anatomy, just looking at their brains. And so who you are is a human consciousness. You're a species of human consciousness that is exploring a very narrow band of perceptual activity, sound, taste, smell, colors, forms, shapes, sensations. And then you interpret those sensations, you say, that's my body, and that's the world. What we call the body and the world are actually interpretations of sensations, if we look at all perceptual activity as sensations. In fact, if you want to remember this acronym, it's easy. SIFT, S-I-F-T. S stands for sensations, I stands for images, F stands for feelings, and T stands for thoughts. Period. Everything else is a story. So consciousness is modulating itself, awareness is modulating itself as sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. And they're changing all the time. I just tell you, look there, now look there. That's a snapshot, that's a snapshot. Okay, so every moment you're taking snapshots, you're taking selfies, and you say, that's me. Your body is your selfie. Right now, the body I'm looking at is a snapshot. But if you're used to taking photos, then you just look at your own photos from your childhood or whenever, and look at it now. There's no such thing as a body. Body's changing perceptual activity. You say, I have a body, which one? The fertilized ovum, the zygote, the embryo, the baby, the toddler, the teenager, this one, or the one that is ready to die. Okay, that's why Wittgenstein and Plato and many other people, Eastern philosophers, Wittgenstein's phrase is beautiful. He says, we are asleep. Our life is a dream. But once in a while, we wake up enough to know that we're dreaming. So who do we wake up to? We wake up to that which is dreaming. The Buddha said the same thing on his deathbed. He said, this lifetime of ours is transient as autumn clouds. To watch the birth and death of beings is like looking at the movements of a dance. A lifetime is like a flash of lightning in the sky, rushing by like a torrent down a steep mountain. In fact, our entire lifetime in cosmic time would not even be a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a trillionth of a second. And here we go around worrying about the stock market and politics and all of that. So, is there an explanation for what's really going on? Is our life really a dream? If I asked you what happened to your childhood, you would say it's over, it's a dream. If I asked you what happened to yesterday, you'd say it's over, it's a dream. But if I asked you what happened to 5 minutes ago when you entered this room, it's over, it's a dream. If I ask you what happens to these words, by the time you hear them, they don't exist. By the time you hear these words, they don't exist. So right now, you're in a lucid dream in what is called a vivid now. It's a lucid dream in a vivid now. And every moment is changing, and all you're experiencing is snapshots that you string together like a movie. You know, you go to a movie, old movies, have you seen Charlie Chaplin movies? The reel couldn't move more than 28 frames a second, so you saw jerky frames. Today we have digital movies, but it's the same thing. You know, digital movies are on-off signals, and when you see a program on television, for example, or a regular movie, you see a character moving from here to here, no character actually moves. Only electrons and photons go on and off in a certain sequence with a certain speed, so you see a movie. So right now you're projecting a movie, and you call it my body, other bodies, and the world. So who is projecting that movie, and what is it, and where is it? If you have a soul, then where is it? You know, usually people in religious traditions tell us when you die, then the soul leaves the body. And there is some soul inside your body. There's something called a soul or a consciousness inside your body. The problem is no one has found it. So, you know, these days you can look at the brain, you can look at the body, and you can track a thought through its electrochemical neural correlates. But there's no one here. So that could mean only two things. You are not in your body, that's one. And the second is that you don't exist. Which, of course, is very difficult to convince anyone that they don't exist. We know we exist. So maybe it's the first conclusion, that's right. You are not in your body. So these days, of course, everybody is documenting out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences. The real mystery is how do you get an in-body experience when you're not in it? So those who have done serious hard work, spiritual hard work, and it doesn't have to be serious because it's all been done. For you, it doesn't have to be serious. They say you're not in the body is in you. You're not in the mind is in you. You're not in the world is in you. You, as a conscious being, are projecting that which we call mind, body, and world based on certain constructs that human beings have created. That the entire universe is a human construct. It doesn't actually exist. Your body is a human construct. It doesn't actually exist. It's an instrument that you use for observation. You are the observer. This is an instrument, and this is all being observed, including part of the instrument is observing the instrument as well. And that consciousness is the fundamental primal entity in the universe. And everything that we call real, space, time, gravity, atoms, molecules, brains, genes, they are human constructs for modes of knowing and experience in human consciousness. That before you give something a name, all it is a perceptual activity, and that perceptual activity is inherent existence in consciousness. This is nominal existence. Nominal means once given a name, it becomes this object. Time is a construct, but if I had time, I'd show you a bunch of slides and you'd see immediately that you're constructing the entire world, including your own body. But today, just let's stay with this idea that there is existence. Whatever it is, there is existence. We exist. And then there is awareness of existence. Because if we didn't know that we are aware, then for practical purposes, There's no existence. In fact, non-existence is not an experience. Non-existence is not an experience. Therefore, the word is technically correct. Non-existence does not exist. And everyone fears death for something that is not an experience, which doesn't exist. So birth, death, these are all time, space, these are human constructs for modes of knowing and experience in human consciousness. And we made it all up, just like we made up money. But there was no money, human beings made it up. They said, okay, first, in the beginning, I'll give you a haircut and you can fix my shoes, or something like that. I said, it's too inconvenient. I'll give you a paper that says, I owe you this, okay? And that became money, we call it currency. Currency of what? Exchange, the stock market. We made it up, just like we made up Greenwich Mean Time. Why not Botswana Mean Time? Okay, but that's colonialism, right? That's part of colonial history. We made colonialism up, we made empires, we made nation states. Where is the real border between Canada and the United States? It's a human construct. So once you realize that everything you give a word to is a human construct, anything that you've given a word to is a human construct and a human story, then you have to ask, what is reality before it's made into a human construct? What is that? And that could not be a system of thought. It cannot be a system of thought, whether it's religion or theology or philosophy or science. Because thought itself is the human creation in the way we construct stories. I have you right? Everybody's getting this. You'll get it even better in a moment. Okay, so let me show you a few slides because I'm mindful of our construct of time. I always start any talk that I give with this first slide, which is the 7 pillars of well-being. I don't have time today to do that, but unless you have a good instrument, then you will never understand reality, and this is the instrument, okay? And it's fun to have a healthy instrument, however long it lasts. Sleep is one of the most efficient ways to go back to self-regulation or homeostasis. Again, not going to talk about this, but it's fascinating science. Every life form sleeps. Even birds that are migrating, half the brain is flying and half the brain is asleep, and then they take turns. So when birds migrate, their brains switch, taking turns for sleeping. Meditation and stress management, we've done lots of studies at the Chopra Center with Nobel laureates, and now other people have replicated that meditation, it increases the activity of healthy genes that cause self-regulation, decreases the activity of those genes that cause inflammation, which is the background in almost every chronic illness. Only 5% of diseases are genetically predicted. The rest is all based on these things. Exercise is very important, but yoga and pranayama are even more important because they stimulate a nerve called the vagus nerve. The English word is vagabond. The Latin word is vagus. This nerve is the 10th cranial nerve that influences the tone of your voice, the facial expression, eye movements, heart rate variability. It pierces the diaphragm. Basically, it's the healing nerve of the body. And if you do a complete yoga program, 30 or so asanas, you basically stimulated every part of the vagus, which is the healing nerve. And that combined with breathing techniques actually is the perfect way to send healing signals to every organ in your body. There's no exercise that will offer a substitute for that, although exercise is good, of course. Emotions like love, compassion, joy, empathy, equanimity, peace of mind, they all regulate our biology through a part of our brain called the limbic brain, the emotional brain. food that is not contaminated by antibiotics, hormones, chemicals, all the things that go into manufactured food. Industrial food production is basically refined food with chemicals and petroleum products. You know, every manufactured food has petroleum in it, and that's inflammatory. So if your food comes from farm to table, and it's rich and in the biodiversity of plant-based foods, that will begin healing the body because of the 2 million extra genes in your gut that are called microbiome. And then connection with nature. When you ground yourself with nature, you reset your biological rhythms. There are 4 types of biological rhythms: circadian rhythm, gravitational rhythms, lunar rhythms, and seasonal rhythms. But when you touch the ground or touch a tree or use a grounding device, then you reset your biological rhythms. So if you have jet lag, for example, that's a disruption in circadian rhythms. But these are part of bigger rhythms of the universe. The universe is a big symphony. We are part of the symphony. That's why we call it the universe, one song. And we are part of that song. And when you're perfectly aligned with the elements and forces of the universe, obviously you feel healthy. So I'm not talking about all that today, which is very important, but this, self-awareness. Self-awareness comes from being aware of your body, being aware of what's happening in your body. Techniques in yoga called pratyahara, which means withdrawal of the senses, interoception. So awareness of your body, awareness of what's happening in your body, awareness of the 5 perceptual experiences: sound, touch, sight, taste, smell. Awareness of mental space: thoughts, feelings, emotions, desires, images. Awareness of the web of relationship, because we are part of a web of relationships, starting with family, friends, society, community, nations, earth, solar system, cosmos, universe. And finally, being aware of the fact that we are aware. So these are the contemplative meditation techniques that have been brought to the world through wisdom traditions from all over the world. Okay, today they are summarized as mindful awareness, mantra meditation for transcendence, mindful awareness of perception, mindful awareness of the body, mental space, relationship, and transcendence. So if you look at the common elements of religious experience, there are 3. I'm not talking about religious dogma, but religious experience, or spiritual experience, or self-awareness, whatever you want to call that. Then there are 3 elements. Number 1, it's called transcendence. You have an experience of yourself not tethered or bound by space, time, and causality. That's number 1, transcendence. Through meditation, or sometimes accidentally, what people call peak experiences or flow experiences. That's 1. The second is the emergence spontaneously of truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, joy, equanimity, which are frequently referred to as Platonic values after Plato. And then the third is the loss of the fear of death. Just those 3 elements are common to every spiritual experience. Transcendence, moral, ethical values that emerge spontaneously, not because they're the 10 commandments and you have to do them. That's just, that kind of morality is just jealousy with a halo. But true morality is spontaneous. You don't have to think about it. And the loss of the fear of death. If you had those 3 experiences, you're on your way to meta-human. So let me show you a few slides. I'm not going to show you all of them. Everything begins with existence. We know that we exist, right? Being conscious, we know we exist. Knowing that we exist is called self-awareness, and that its different aspects. And we cannot begin to think about anything unless we know that we exist. And therefore, existence and knowing that we exist are synonymous. Because knowing and existence cannot be separated, then anytime we know any particular thing, like you know this microphone, You have to ignore everything else. It's in the background. Okay, that's why spiritual traditions say every bit of knowledge is ignorance. You're ignoring everything else just to focus on this one little slice of perceptual experience. Right now, your awareness is having the experience of your body, my body, all these bodies, your mind, this room, and everything you're thinking also, and whether you're liking it or not. And that's happening in your awareness, which knows itself as both the subject and the object. So I know myself now as this and that. Because if there was no that, there's no knowledge of this. You know, the Africans have a phrase, Ubuntu, I am because you are. We interdependently co-arise as experience. You cannot have experience in the absence of what we call the other. So the subject-object split is how consciousness knows itself as the knower and the known. And in the beginning, all we are sensing is perceptual activity and a vague interpretation of that in infancy. And then we start exploring through imagination, curiosity, intuition, and creativity, which obviously are not the dance of molecules, they're the dance of consciousness. So we turn direct modes of knowing, which are sensing, feeling, perceiving, into concepts. And this is how mind, body, and universe became objectified and separated. We created the universe, which was the topic of another book as well. So your mind, brain, and body don't happen to contain awareness. There's no container of awareness. So if awareness is formless, has no form, then it's infinite. You are an infinite being having a finite experience. You're a timeless being having a time-bound experience. Teilhard de Chardin, the Christian theologian, he said, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We want to be scientific, we are non-local beings having a local experience. And all this is before mind, brain, and body. What humans call the universe and everything else is also an experience. And because the very first experience that is possible is awareness knowing itself, this never changes. No matter how complex your everyday experience might be, it's just a modification of yourself as mind, body, and universe. So there is only awareness, endlessly modifying itself, in the same way as white light breaks up into countless colors that can paint infinite pictures. And so you have the potential, in the same way, to use your awareness to literally morph yourself into any form of phenomena. Now, I've gone out on a limb in the past and said, you can reverse your biological age. All the data is showing that you can do that. I'm going to be 73, although I don't like to think about it, but my biological age is not even half that. And I'm being honest with you. Okay, so anyone can do that. And now all the data is coming that biological age, chronological age, psychological age, spiritual age, they're all different. And the best age to relate to is your spiritual age because it has no beginning in time and no ending in time. It is not in time altogether. The more you metabolize infinity, the younger you will be, even as this modified form of awareness that we call the body. The body is not made of matter, nor of energy, not of information. Those are human constructs for different modes of knowing the same thing, which is yourself. The body is made of consciousness, and awareness is non-local and formless. All forms and phenomena endlessly arise and subside as modifications. Your body is a process. Even that which we call a person is a process. People frequently say, you know, I'm the same person or I'm not the same person. Well, you're never the same person. You're the same being. In the deeper reality, there's no such thing as a person either. A person is a human construct for a process. It's a verb, it's not a noun. So awareness is present in every form and phenomena as knower, knowing, and known. So what is the most common word we use in any language? It's I. I never changes. I was a baby. I was a child. I liked this restaurant we went to. I am unhappy with the current political climate and the fact that we have caused this devastation. So I is preceding every experience. I precedes every experience. Every experience is in time, but I is not in time. Being not in time, it doesn't have a shape or a form, it's infinite. So this feeling, it's not even a feeling, it's the knowing I exist. It roots us as individuals in the vastness of this existence, which is also infinite. Freedom is knowing this I, when it realizes what we call self-realization. And this is what consciousness is prior to interpretation. A field of infinite possibilities, formless, irreducible, infinite, fundamental, unpredictable. If I asked you to predict your next thought, you can't. In fact, close your eyes right now and ask yourself, I wonder what my next thought is going to be. Now wait for it. Paradoxically, when you wait for it, it doesn't come. Okay, so it's unpredictable, which is very important because being unpredictable, it is infinitely creative. The more unpredictability, the more you surrender to unpredictability, the more you will be creative. I start my day every day by looking at my schedule at the last moment, sometimes the day before. But then I always start my day and say, I hope today is as unpredictable as yesterday. Then you're all set. Nothing can ever go wrong. Right? Awareness unfolds through synchronicity, which means meaningful coincidences, what religious traditions call the state of grace. Some people say good luck. Some people say I happen to be in the right place at the right time. And that is because you have surrendered with subtle intention and attention to the infinite being in you. And awareness is intrinsically free of its modifications. The awareness of a thought is not a thought. Correct? If you are aware of a thought, then you're separate from the thought. The awareness of this perception is not this perception, it's the awareness. So awareness is intrinsically free of its modifications, free to create anything. It's self-organizing, self-regulating, self-evolving, and it is rooted in the knowing of I am, I exist. That's it. And final slide to show you today. We have now done some research in our retreats. Chopra Center, now Chopra Global, you know we have all these retreats and you can look them up, but we've started to do some research into what today's scientists call non-dual experiences. And this is what we find. People have a shift in sense of self. They don't identify themselves with their body or mind, but with the awareness in which the body and mind is having a change of experience. They have a change in emotions, no drama, but lots of love, compassion, joy. The joy comes from knowing that you're limitless, no limitations. A shift in cognition, which means the way you think. Instead of always thinking dogmatically, the internal dialogue actually quietens down to the point that you summon thought only when you need it. The rest of the time, you are in that pure consciousness which is full of joy, has no reason. If you're happy for a reason, then that's misery. Because the reason can be taken away from you anytime. But if you're happy for no reason, then you're all set. Okay? There's a shift in perception. Things are noticed in the present moment, and then they're let go of. Also, perception becomes luminous. There's a shift in memory. You're not victimized by memory, but you use memory. And why do we use memory? Because we selectively use what we've learned to create new things. There's insight, inner vision, there's intuition, which is a form of intelligence that is contextual, relational, holistic, doesn't have a win-lose orientation. You're eavesdropping on the conversation of the cosmos. And as a result of that, there's vision, creativity, what people call flow states, ecstasy. Ecstasy means ectasis, stepping out of the boundaries of space-time and causality. There's transcendence, there's loss of sense of personal agency, which means you realize that everything is unfolding spontaneously and synchronistically, and there's loss of the fear of death. So this is metahuman. And I could take you through a long meditation, but we'll do something very short right now. Okay, just close your eyes for a moment. And bring your awareness into your heart. Just let's play with one question only, and you can decide what the answer is. Ask yourself, who am I? What am I? Then ask yourself, am I the changing body? Or am I the awareness in which the changing body is an experience? Ask yourself, am I my changing thoughts? Or am I the awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear? Am I my changing emotions? Or am I the awareness in which emotions come and go? Am I even my personality, or is that something that can evolve in my awareness? Who am I? What am I? And once again, you don't need to even try to figure out the answers. They will come to you as sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. But you must ask. Only then can you receive. And you must ask of yourself. Again, as the great poet Rumi said, the whole universe exists inside you. Ask all from yourself. Now please open your eyes. And I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Their only answer is yes or no. The question I'm asking you right now is, are you present right now? Yes. A little more enthusiasm. Are you present right now?
Yes.
Good. Who did you consult?
Myself.
Self. So now, let me ask you the same question, but don't answer it till I raise my hand. Everybody get that? Same question, same answer. Don't answer it till I raise my hand. Are you present?
Yes.
Are you present? The question is a thought. The answer, yes, is a thought. Just like looking there is a perception, looking there is another perception. This is true of everything we experience, sensations, images, feelings, thoughts. But you are the awareness in between and in the experience, both. The thought comes and goes, you never come and go, you're always there. That should tell you that your true self is not in time. So I'm going to ask you the same question, and then just settle down and be aware of yourself. Okay, don't, instead of listening to me, be aware of that which is listening. Are you aware? This is who you are. Before all the constructs, everything else, this is who you are. If you carry this presence with you, wherever you go, it already is there. It's just overshadowed by all the things you think about. But if you carry this with you, it'll be your ticket to freedom. God's language is silence. Everything else is poor translation. So thank you very much.